Hi, I'm Nicola from The Great Projects, and I just want to tell you a little bit about my journey into the world of conservation. Now, it all started over 4 years ago when I graduated from university. I'd studied design and also done a lot of work with photography alongside, and I decided I wanted to go and see a bit of the world before I moved on to do my master's degree. Mainly I decided to come to Asia, and as part of the trip decided to volunteer with orangutan specifically. On my return from this trip, I felt that I couldn't continue with my original intentions of going off to continue to study, and that I wanted to do something more to help. I felt that there was more I could give, and perhaps a way I could use my creativity to make a difference in the world of conservation. To begin with, I had no idea how. The only thing I knew how to do was to go back and volunteer. So within 3 days of returning to the UK, I was booked back on another volunteer trip for a few months' time. I had another temp job down to save some money, and in my spare time was putting together a photo book to raise money for the projects that I've been working on. I also did other fundraising events and worked alongside the Great Projects in basically every spare waking hour that I had. By working so closely with them, I actually ended up going and doing an internship in the office for 3 months. During this time I worked on sales, marketing, that kind of stuff. Because at the end of the day I knew the projects because I'd been on them, and so I could help try and prepare volunteers for their experience when they were coming here. During this time, opportunity came up to be part of a dream team, a group of ex-volunteers with specific skills, to come actually here and build an island, build the platforms on the island, and also establish a volunteer programme here. As part of doing this, it meant I could build on the knowledge I had of actually being a volunteer with what it takes to set up a volunteer programme. And this gave me a real kind of variety of information that I found really interesting. I also used every spare moment I had to photograph all of the animals here, all of the work we were doing, and to document the progress of what we had done work-wise here. This then, when I got back to the UK, we used to help market and sell the project, and also I then went back into doing sales and marketing, preparing volunteers again for other programmes. Because by this stage I'd done maybe 4 or 5 different volunteer programmes. I did find though that I'm not built for offices. I'm not an office girl. I can't do it. I feel like a caged bird. And I really had a need to be creative. At the end of the day, I studied it for a reason because it's an intrinsic part of me. So I started trying to angle the work that I was doing in the office more towards the creative side of things, so doing more of the design work, the photography work, and I ended up enrolling on a conservation filmmaking course, which was a brilliant combination of my interest in kind of image and conservation. On this course I met some amazing people, but I also found the opportunity to go to Uganda. I grabbed this obviously with both hands because Uganda for me was somewhere I've always wanted to go since I was a child. I've always been intrigued by the people, by the forests, and specifically the gorillas there. So in October last year I headed out there to set up the project. It was daunting. I was on my own. I'd never set a project up completely from scratch before. But I used everything that I'd learned by being a volunteer, everything I'd learned from being here and seeing how a volunteer project was established, and also everything kind of that I'd seen and everything that I'd worked with the local people around the projects that I'd been on before. I find that actually to make conservation sustainable you have to involve the local people and you have to involve the community. And therefore I decided to take this project. Yes, it supported gorilla conservation, but the main aim was to basically put in infrastructure to support the community, to show them how important the gorilla and how important their forests were, and therefore kind of help the gorilla in turn. And this, it really was kind of an amazing experience. And every trip that I make, I seem to learn more, and I try to apply that with each next challenge. I now use everything that I've learned to try and revamp and make the projects that we've already got have a bigger benefit for the local people, the animals, the habitats, and at the same time be as enjoyable as possible for our volunteers. I still did feel that I needed to have more of a creative outlet, however, and I almost did a full circle because now my new venture is actually designing a range of jewellery which will support all of the different people and animals that I've worked with over the years, in a hope also to spread the message of the importance of conservation and that we can each do a little. You know, I'm out there and I feel so lucky that each time I can do my little bit to make a difference. It might be a big difference, it might be a small difference, but it doesn't matter, so long as I'm trying to do my bit. And I want to get that across to other people, that they can also, you know, kind of have a huge impact from doing just what they can. Now, as you can tell from my journey, I have no formal background, you know, in conservation. I have no formal background in animal. I have just an endless appetite for trying to make a difference. I have a passion for these animals and these places, and I've volunteered and built up the experience I needed to be here. Now, there are kind of 6 key points that I've identified while being on this journey to kind of get where I am today, that I feel that perhaps if you want to get into the world of conservation, you might want to try and consider, basically. I might have to read them because otherwise I'll forget them, so I do apologise. But basically, number 1 is you need time and experience. As I've said to you already, it's taken me over 4 years even to get to where I am today. Now, I know I don't work in the academic side of conservation, I just work in one small area of it, but it's an area that I love, and it's an area I still feel I'm making an impact. But I wouldn't have got here without the volunteering work and without all the, you know, all the time that I put into kind of being where I am today. So that is, you know, one of the real key points. Number 2 is you need to be willing to make sacrifices. You know, volunteering isn't free. To be able to achieve anything in a volunteer programme, there has to be money involved. And also, coming out of the country you're from is costly. So there are certain sacrifices you have to make. There's certain amounts of partying you can't go and do, and social life that you have to kind of scrap. If you're willing to make those sacrifices, then yeah, perhaps it is kind of the area for you to work in. Number 3, you need passion and determination. There are some really hard days. You know, there are some days when you feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall. But if you've got that passion behind you and the determination and drive to get to the bigger picture, to see what it is you're actually trying to achieve and work through those bad days, then, you know, you really need it there. Number 4, you need to think outside the box. Now, as I said earlier, you know, I'm not an academic. I didn't come into conservation through the normal kind of scene routes. Be creative. Think, how can you get into conservation? What are your skills? What is it that you're good at? And how can you angle that to make it apply to a conservation type job? Number 5, you need to be specific about your chosen species if you go into it through the academic route. Certain animals and their field are flooded. I mean, how many experts do you know in the field of orangutan? So if you wanted to go down the academic route, be very specific and really focus hard on which animal stroke habitat, you know, kind of that you really want to look at. And number 6, finally, don't give up. It is a hard road, you know, but anything that's worth it isn't going to be easy to get. I feel totally blessed that, you know, I'm here doing the job that I do. And, you know, you never know, one day you'll get there too.